Yo, it's James from Cinemassacre, and I'm back on Discography Discussion. Yeah!
And if you believe the haunted world of El Superbeast is digging through the ditches and burning, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Jeff. James Rolfe from Cinemassacre returns to talk about some Rob Zombie. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you to everyone who's listening to this podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Google Play. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on TuneIn Radio. So if you have an Amazon Echo product, you can say to it, Alexa, play the latest episode of Discography Discussion, and she will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening, and leave us 5-star reviews everywhere you can. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. We appreciate that. It lets us know what we're doing, and it lets us know what we can do better just for you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Superbeast, James Rolfe on Discography Discussion.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How's it going? Welcome back.
Oh, thanks.
It's probably a little bit nicer not being in the middle of the night this time.
Oh, okay, I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was fun, though.
Yeah, it was.
That's a beautiful wall behind you, by the way.
It is.
It is time. It's time.
Time for
I know what it's
zombie.
time for. Can I have a bucket, please?
We have another guy here holding a bucket for us.
Yeah, we took your advice. So now we got, whenever it's time to take care of business from off stage.
There you go.
So far, that's still my favorite part of any episode. I love that piece of trivia you gave us. That was fantastic.
Yeah, did you ever find what documentary it was?
No, I did not. But
I'll have to look into that for you, because I probably have it.
Still, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
James, how was your Christmas?
Oh, good. A lot of toys to play with. Lots of kids' toys to put together.
I'm lucky. My toy putting together was putting together an Oculus Rift for my kid.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
for your kid.
Yeah, for my kid.
Nice. Yeah, just for your kid. Yeah.
No, I'm serious. It's in his room. So
He must have a huge bedroom.
yeah, we totally redid his bedroom. There's like 3 pieces of furniture in there, and one of them is his computer desk.
Well, James, you might appreciate this. I was gifted a Betamax player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never had one. I have a few Betamax tapes that I bought probably by accident, not knowing what they were.
2017.
Yeah. Yeah, so now it's time to go. Yeah. But no, I think I got to clean it. I'm not even sure if it works. The thing's so freaking huge.
Probably
that
needs new
I was
belts.
like, I can't even take this home because I have nowhere to put it.
Wow.
But,
yeah, they're really noisy, too.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all this month we've been doing nothing but industrial bands. And even though Zombie wasn't industrial for his entire career, I feel like there's enough of it to make it work.
Yeah, I'd say there's 4 definitive albums that you could comfortably put into some form of industrial. You at least have industrial elements on the albums.
All I know is at this one point in the mid-'90s, I found this album called Hillbilly Deluxe, and I listened to it, I think, 20 times in a row, because I was just trying to figure out where it came from. And in my non-observant youth, I had no idea this was the same guy that did White Zombie, who did Thunder Kiss 65, and then all I heard was movie references and amazing album artwork, and I like Rob Zombie a lot. I'm sorry. I really, really like Rob Zombie.
So, James, what is your personal history with Rob Zombie?
My personal history, I guess since you put it that way, I guess you'd find this interesting, is that my first near run-in with White Zombie was I was a child at the time. I didn't even know this happened, so I wasn't aware of White Zombie until I was a teenager. But at one point, White Zombie played a strip club that was right down the street from where I lived, and all these years later, I discovered this as an adult and was like, oh my god! Like, first of all, not even knowing that was a strip club, because like your parents keep you away from that kind of thing when you're a kid.
Sure.
There was like a tattoo place and there was a strip club, and White Zombie played there, and I remember hearing things about it as I grew up, like just knowing people who knew somebody who went or something, and I didn't know anything about I didn't even know about like metal music. I was kind of sheltered from that thing. I mean, I was into Van Halen and White Snake, stuff like that, but it was probably like just around the same time I got into Metallica. I got into White Zombie, and I had Les Exorcisto and Astro Creep. And then when Rob Zombie, when he went solo and had Hellbilly Deluxe, I was like just completely on board. And that was the first one where I just jumped on, was like, this is the best thing I ever heard in my life.
My first introduction to solo stuff, I think, was, besides like radio play, was it Gran Turismo? Was the first game that his music was in?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of them, though.
Yeah, it was either Gran Turismo or Gran Turismo 2. I forget which one. And that was like my total introduction, and that I was just like, because you could actually make your own playlist of the songs that were in the game, and I was like, yeah, I'm digging this. Dragula, I think was.
It had to be on a car racing game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Dragula, but
yeah, it makes sense. Actually, now you bring that up, the soundtracks and movies, that's a good way. There's just so many movies that their soundtracks are in.
He did that. He was in WWF. It was WWE at the time, but he did a couple remixes for them. I know his albums, essentially, the second half became the soundtracks of the scores for his movies. Did you ever notice that in all of his videos, he's driving a car?
Yeah, Rob Zombie loves
Because you
cars.
mentioned the car racing thing, and I just was thinking back. Never Gonna Stop, Superbeast, he's always driving a car.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know cars were metal until I heard Dragula. And I was like, holy shit, I have been living a lie, because I have never dug through the ditches or burned through the witches or slammed in the back of my Dragula,
I guess it's more rock, but I always associated ZZ Top with cars when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
They had that, what was it, that
the
34?
Eliminator car.
Yeah, was it a 34 Ford that they had chopped or something like that? That was pretty slick.
Sammy Hagar.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always thought of Rob Zombie as rock more than metal, just because he talked about being in White Zombie, and he claimed in an interview he did with MTV that he was the reason that the band went the groove direction. So the Thunder Kiss 65, all the Swingin' Sexy Sounds album, he says he was the reason that the groove got added, and that just went on into his solo stuff. But his solo stuff just seemed bigger and more electronic and a little bit more of a stage show than just a band playing on stage, which I remember from, was it Bill and Ted that he was playing in a nightclub, Dan? With White Zombie?
I don't know if it was Bill and Ted. It's been a long time since I saw that movie, but
So many movies and stuff. It's like,
I know. Well, I'm trying to think of any movie I've seen in a strip club where there's a band playing, because that was, because I feel like there were a couple of movies where White Zombie at least was playing in a club. Because I remember this scene, and I think it was from RoboCop, or maybe it was was it RoboCop 2?
Yes.
Can't remember. It was a RoboCop 2. Okay, yeah, where he goes into a nightclub and like everybody's dancing and White Zombie's playing, and he just grabs the guy and pulls him out of there. Like, doesn't say anything to him, just pulls him out of there.
I'll have to see that again, though.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of exposure, and it's weird because I heard about Rob Zombie first. I wasn't really aware of White Zombie before that. And I remember if I had heard a White Zombie song on the radio, I probably would have just thought it was Rob Zombie and just not really, you know.
I used to just call it Zombie.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
It was all the same. Like, oh, you listen to Zombie?
By the Cranberries?
Yeah, not that one.
Oh, they played the shit out of that song so much.
Oh, I know.
I hated that song when it was new. Hated it.
Yeah, I used to drive a couple of my friends nuts in the band I used to be in, and because they loved Dolores O'Riordan, the lead singer, and like every time that they'd want to play Zombie, I'd just start doing like a metal scream whenever it would come on, and I'd just scream the whole time and act like it was a metal song, and yeah, so they stopped with their whole obsession with the Cranberries very shortly thereafter.
Oh, okay.
Great work.
I think I hated like whatever was popular back then. Like I hated like, I mean, I can appreciate bands like Nirvana now, but I didn't like Nirvana when they were new. I was just like, this is just so played out. I'm sick of hearing the same song repeated on the radio over and over and over again. So I'd always look for alternatives, and I guess that's where like White Zombie came in for me. I'm like, I don't hear anybody listen to this, but this is awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. I worked with some guys that were older than me. I actually started working when I was 14 and a half. Legally, I was able to work X amount of hours per week with these other guys, and they were huge metalheads. And that was my first exposure to White Zombie, was at that job. And La Sexoristo was, oh my gosh, that was just like eye-opening. I was like, this is metal, but it's got hints of groove in it. I'm like, I can dig this. This isn't just straight up screaming. And as an impressionable 14-and-a-half-year-old, that's kind of a big deal.
Even like watching a lot of movies and knowing where he gets a lot of his sound bites from, and like titles and lines of lyrics and stuff. Even to this day, I'm always noticing something else. I'm like, oh, I that's where he got that from. Like you're just talking about, like, dig through the ditches, burn through the witches, from a City of the Dead, and like I heard them say it in there. I was like, oh, okay, that's where he got that line from. So it's actually the actual sound bites. Like in the Haunting, when he says, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen. And he's at the beginning of Supercharger Heaven. So it's always kind of fun. It's like a fun game to figure out like where all his clips came from.
And you can tell he loves that stuff. I mean, he's so, some of it's really obscure, some of it's popular, but like you said, I mean, he puts so many clips in and makes it work. I think it's really cool that it's metal and hard rock, and he's using clips like that, because most of the time when you hear clips, it's either like house music or rap or something like that. But I love the fact that he's using it in metal and having fun with it.
Yeah.
Is there one of his albums that you go to more than any other, James, or do you have kind of a playlist at this point?
Like either White Zombie or Rob Zombie?
Oh yeah, anything he's done.
Okay, let's see. You know what? It's really a toss-up between. It's really tough. It's got to be. I guess I got to go Hellbilly Deluxe, but it's a close call, like that or Astro Creep or Sinister Urge. I actually think Sinister Urge is in a lot of ways better than Hellbilly Deluxe, but the one that came out at the right time was Hellbilly Deluxe. I think Sinister Urge kind of peaked. That was like the height of his like production, and then he sort of seemed to scale it back a little bit. He wasn't Sinister Urge has a lot of those like orchestral elements in it, and then with Educate Horses, it seemed like it was kind of more a little bit back to basics. I mean, it still had. I mean, his basics is still pretty epic, but yeah, that was when John 5 came in the band, and he sort of did like a whole new makeover. I remember the first time seeing him. I've seen him live a bunch of times, but I remember that was the first time seeing the band come out, and I was like, oh my god, this is like a different band, and they weren't as dressed up as before. Like Rob was just that was the first time I saw him without dreadlocks. And he was just wearing just like regular jeans, and they really stripped down the show a lot. And I mean, I love John 5. I love his guitar playing. So he really brought a lot of new stuff into the band. But I do miss the old production value, like not just the sound, but the stage show too. Because when the first time I saw him was on the Hellbilly Deluxe tour, and I was just blown away by like the stage design, and like the whole thing was set up like he was in a dungeon, and they had those big video screens and the robot coming out and the pyro, and it just blew my mind. And I to this day I don't think I've ever seen anything that has topped that in terms of spectacle.
Well, you mentioned seeing him multiple times. I got to see him most recently when he toured with Marilyn Manson. They came through St. Louis, and
cool.
John Davis was supposed to appear, and his DJ persona, J-Devil, which is a great name. He stole that from me. But he apparently chickened out of St. Louis, so Rob called up his little brother, so we got Powerman 5000 to open that show. It was amazing.
Wow, cool.
I have this question. If you've seen him more than once, because I've had the opportunity to see him outdoors and indoors, and I have a theory. Is he better indoors?
Yes.
Thank you.
He likes to complain about the weather a lot too.
Yes.
Understandably. I mean, I was sweating my ass off seeing him outdoors multiple times, and I remember he said, like, "Can't we do this in the fall?"
I've seen him in the cold. I've seen him in the heat. I've seen him indoors, outdoors, in a hot arena, and a cold arena. And both times he was indoors, his vocals were just better.
Yeah.
And I was almost checking to see if he was lip syncing, but he wasn't. It was still Rob Zombie. And I thought, this guy just can't play outside.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, he does, but he wears out a bit because he's an active guy on stage. Like, he's jumping all over the place. Especially when he used to have the dreadlocks. I would love when he would just swing the dreads around in a circle.
Yup.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so cool.
He did come out in the Hellbilly Deluxe get-up with the giant hat, so I still got to see that.
Yeah.
And Marilyn Manson would go on to tour with Alice Cooper, but we're not talking about that tonight.
Well, Joe, when you were talking about, you don't consider it metal, and I think it's interesting you'd bring up Alice Cooper because I think with bands like that where it's kind of more of a production almost, more so than like a band. You know what I mean? Like you go and see Metallica, you're there to see the band, but you go and see somebody like Rob Zombie or Marilyn Manson or Alice Cooper or even Ozzy Osbourne, you're going to see the full theater production. You're going to sit down. If you have no soul, I guess you'll sit down. But, you're basically going into almost a theater environment and watching a full-on production with planning. And I think the line between, if you want to be the genre police and be like, well, if you listen to this riff is hard rock because, whatever reason I guess you can come up with. But I think in a case like Rob Zombie, it's like it's aggressive, it's scary, it's over the top. And I think in that case, I think we kind of throw just a broad genre of metal over it, just because what else can you really call it,
Yeah, and then you factor in like the real dirty vocals. I mean, it's just
harsh vocals.
Yeah,
he screams sometimes. Just the aesthetic alone rings metal band.
Yeah, I mean, if people are going to consider Ghost metal, I mean, Rob Zombie is a million times more metal than Ghost will ever be.
I mean, they both have the production, I guess. They both have the stage show.
Ghost is taking up the torch of those kind of bands, I think.
I guess in the back of my head, I still think heavy metal is different than metal. Where's the line? It doesn't matter.
Like the British heavy metal?
Yes.
It was heavy metal, now it's kind of just metal. Because there's so many different types of metal now. I don't know, where was I going with this?
I actually like Rob Zombie because he blurs those lines. I mean, he takes what he likes and puts it into his music. If he likes it, he uses it, and he doesn't really seem to give a crap where it comes from. And I think that's why I like him so much.
It's stressful, for sure.
Yeah, because it's just he's all over the map, but he actually makes that work.
And he is like a Renaissance rocker. That he's an illustrator, he's a filmmaker. He even like edited magazines. Porno magazines, but he's just sort of like an all-encompassing artist when it comes to everything. He really does. It seems like his music is sort of like a mixed media production.
I think that's what makes his live shows so good.
How do you feel about him using? I'm a fan of his films. I don't know how much of a fan you are of him, James, but how do you feel about him using his own music, writing his own film scores, and then using that to create that kind of 70s horror film feeling?
I'm fine with it now, but when it first, the first one he did, I remember, well, he uses a lot of like Allman Brothers and like, I think like Neil Young. Like he likes using a lot of classic rock that isn't his own, and Leonard Skinner. So I think it's cool when he uses other people's music. And sometimes if his own music fits, then it's fine. But I remember there was a lot of confusion when his first movie came out, House of Thousand Corpses. I remember going into it, nobody knew what to expect before it came out. Everybody was like, oh, is this going to be like a Rob Zombie music video? And I remember him having to explain, like, no, this isn't a music video. This is a movie. And I think he even said that he wasn't going to use any of his own music. But he did, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm just fine with it if it fits.
Yeah, I know he used basically the second half of the Sinister Urge got used in the House of a Thousand Corpses, because that has has Pussy Liquor, the House of a Thousand Corpses, or at least on my version it does.
Oh, okay. From what I remember, there was only one song on it that was from Sinister Urge, which was I think the title track, House of a Thousand Corpses, right?
Yes. It was kind of a medley type thing.
That just kind of got released later. So a lot of those were actually debuted in the film, and then some of them got released on this 2003 compilation. I remember, because it came with a DVD and it had lots of his music videos on it. It was like all his music videos at that time, and there's like a lot of songs that weren't on any albums, like soundtrack songs. But now you got me curious, because I'm trying to think, like, where the hell is that Rabbit song? Where the hell did that come from? Because I know Pussy Liquor was on that compilation.
You're right, because that was from, I'm thinking of the Devil's Rejects that was on Educated Horses. But where was Pussy Liquor, now that I'm thinking about it? How many times can we say Pussy Liquor in this episode?
I don't know. Are you going to beep it?
I was going to say, it's not me this time.
He's the only guy he put out a song called, like, Well, Everybody's Fucking in a UFO.
Right, yeah. I mean, let's talk about the title of that last album, the most recent one.
Yeah, I like the Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor, because
that was cool
thing to say. And I really loved that album, believe it or not. Like, I thought that was like one of his best ones since like Hellbilly and Sinister Urge.
I thought the same thing, because John 5 got to just riff, and I didn't. When I saw him live, when he headlined with Marilyn Manson, he actually opened with Teenage Nosferatu Pussy, and I had never heard it. I was like, what is that song? Because it was one of those where you feel like you've heard it, but you never have. I go look it up, and I'm like, there's a new Rob Zombie record? And then I listened to it 6 times in a row, just because, I'll admit it, he's got that. He's got the cover of We're an American Band, Lucifer Rising.
Yeah. As weird as it sounds, I love Rock and Roll in a Black Hole.
Oh, I love that one so much.
There's 3 genres of music that I'm huge fans of: metal, new wave, and classical. So I'm hitting 2 of the 3 with this song, because I'm like, I totally got a new wave vibe mixed in with that. I'm like, oh, this is like the best thing ever. Like
you have to headbang to it. Like, you can't. You have no option.
Yeah, I was like totally dancing around to this morning in the shower, because I have a sound system in the bathroom. Yeah, I know I'm terrible, but there's a TV in there too. So
is it 7.1, Jeff?
No.
Then you're not doing your job.
But it sounds pretty damn good.
Talk about a record you can't drive in the van with the kids.
Any Rob Zombie record?
Yeah, I mean...
Thank God my kids are old enough, it doesn't matter anymore.
I did shuffle for the longest time, and oh my God, when it's not like... Because it'll show up on the dashboard, right? Because songs, songs will show up on your dashboard. So it's like you're driving, you're listening to something nice and pleasant, and and then all of a sudden a song called Pussy Liquor just throws itself up on there, and my wife is like, what?
It's Rob Zombie, sweetie. It's okay. Yeah. Coming from the guy that listens to Norwegian black metal, I'm actually surprised.
Yeah, but like when I'm listening to super
fucking Hostile comes on or something.
Fucking Hostile, yeah, exactly.
Metallica, So What?
Yeah.
So fucking what?
When I'm listening to only the super heavy bands that scream all the time, it like doesn't matter, because it doesn't, they can't understand
what they're saying.
You finally admit it.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's like you just get out of church on Sunday and you're driving, and then so fucking what? Or what was that other song? He's like, I got something to say. I killed your baby today. Yeah.
His most recent one, I thought, was like half good. Like I love the Venomous Rat one, like we were just talking about. But the Electric Witch,
Electric Warlock, Acid Witch, Satanic Orgy, Celebration. Shit.
I know the last word is vendor.
It ran out of.
I think I actually have the vinyl for that at home. And it's funny.
Oh, really?
Celebration Dispenser.
Oh,
there
Dispenser.
We go.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was Vendor. Yeah.
Vendor is the second one.
I thought that one was
the second last
half
one.
Good. Like there was like half pretty good songs on it. What did you guys think?
I liked it. It's definitely not as good as Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor, but I still liked it. It's back to the kind of a electronic industrial feel to it. I love that kind of sound. I have to admit that I was not a fan of Educated Horses at all. I didn't care for the stripped down sound. It had it had a lot of country elements to it. And I'm like, that's cool. I like the fact they tried something. There was a couple songs on it I liked, but as a collective whole, that one didn't do it for me. Yeah, but the new one I actually liked quite a bit. It's probably number 4 on my list.
See, I feel like the pacing is off on that record.
A little bit.
It just doesn't.
Horses.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. No, well, that. Yeah. Well, that record.
Okay.
I had nothing good to say about it, so I was going to say nothing at all. But
you're trying to be nice.
Jeff sent me a text earlier this week saying, educated horses, and I think I just sent him back the puke icon, the puke emoji on the iPhone. And
I think it partly is because that's just not what people expect from him. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's more of that it's necessarily bad. I think if you could actually, extract the Rob Zombie persona from your mind and then listen to it, I don't think you'd be disappointed. I just think it's just we have such a...
Everybody wants to hear Hellbilly Deluxe is what you're saying?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I hate pigeonholing artists, but, Rob Zombie throughout the years, whether it's been, heavy or... metal or rock or whatever, there's always been like this certain element to his music, and it's missing in Educated Horses, in my opinion. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just so different that it's hard to digest for me.
Educated Horses, I think, it didn't progress much. It was kind of like it could have came out before Hellbilly, actually. Like it didn't really like. Because there was like this step up. It was like there was Hellbilly, then Sinister Urge, and each one sort of like just throw down more, just top last one. And then Educated Horses was like, okay, that's as far as that's going to go. Let's go back a little bit. I really loved the song American Witch. I love Foxy Foxy. I thought that was kind of different. Like I haven't heard him do anything with that kind of sound. And Let It All Bleed Out sounded pretty classic, like classic White Zombie kind of thing. But they were good songs on it, but it didn't overwhelm the same way the first two did.
Right. I listened to that album for the first time near when Marilyn Manson released Born Villain, and I remember my review of that was, it's nice to hear Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids again, and not what he would become, because that whole glam rock thing with Heart-Shaped Glasses, which is a good song, but that whole thing he did kind of got out of control. And then I hear two artists that kind of were in the same era that did a stripped down record. I really liked Born Villain. I really didn't like Educated Horses, except for those two songs that you mentioned. And then I guess it was Hellbilly Deluxe 2 came out after that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a giant cash in on a name. But
yeah. I did not like the title. I think they should have called it Cannibal Man and a Jungle Girl. Like, take it from one of the lyrics of one of the songs instead of it being... Because if it's Hellbilly Deluxe 2, you're saying that it's a follow-up to Hellbilly Deluxe. And it really isn't. It's just... it's another album. And it had... Again, that one had some good stuff on it. I really loved Sick Bubblegum and What. Like, those are the two that stick out to me.
Yep.
I like Werewolf Women of the SS, too.
Yeah, it's a good one, too.
Yeah. How can you not like it with that title?
And that was the trailer that he did for Grindhouse also.
Yes, it is. And that might be the reason why I like it. I loved Grindhouse. Something Fierce. I don't know how many times I watched that in the theater.
One of them had like a surf sound. I think it was Werewolf Baby. Like, there's two werewolf songs on it, which I was kind of blurs my memory. But that other werewolf one has like this surf kind of feel. And it always makes me think of werewolves on surfboards for some reason.
Yeah, it's like that Beach Boys surf sound. Yeah,
Beach Boys meet Trauma.
Right. Yeah, dude, that would be a perfect poster for that song. Yeah. Yeah. No, Hellbilly Deluxe. I have to admit, I really did kind of feel let down by it at first. See, I always have this visceral reaction when I first get a record, and so like you said, James, if I'm getting Hellbilly Deluxe 2, I'm thinking, all right, let's go. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this just sounds,
It's Educated Horses again.
Yeah,
I've been tricked.
It sounds like Educated Horses too, or, but then,
Vital.
Yeah, and I get it. I get that part of it was a money thing, like everybody's going to pick up Hellbilly Deluxe too, and So I think this record really kind of was a grower on me and kind of got me back into Rob Zombie, because I think when I heard Educated Horses, I was like, oh, okay, he's lost it, I'm done, and I just kind of stopped listening after that. And then here I am like, I think I might be able to dig this.
I had the same experience, I think, like that I really loved a lot of those songs, but yeah, I was expecting a follow-up to Hellbilly Deluxe, so it's just a good album with a bad title. And there's a lot of bands doing that nowadays too. It's sort of become a little bit of a trend, like these sequel albums that I don't know how many times they actually are like sequels.
You don't feel exactly the same as you did when you first recorded that first album. If Metallica puts out Master of Puppets again or Master of Puppets 2, it's not going to sound like Master of Puppets. The guitars aren't going to sound the same. Everything's going to sound a little bit off. So even if those songs were written in the same vein or the same manner as the originals, it's still not going to sound the same. A record is unique in the fact that it is an imprint, a timestamp. It's a time capsule, so to speak. You're never going to you're never going to be able to replicate the exact same thing again. So that's why I think it's kind of crazy that everybody's kind of like chasing that dream right now. Because it's not really an obtainable goal. It's kind of a waste of time. I'm willing to accept a new album by a band like Metallica, like Hardwired. That was a good Metallica album.
Yeah.
Dan, did you like The Unforgiven?
Yeah.
Okay, well, for you, we have The Unforgiven 2.
Right, no, it's not the same thing, though. What I'm saying
However, if you didn't like Unforgiven 2, we have Unforgiven 3.
Well, what I'm saying is though, is that, like, I'm willing to accept a record like Hardwired because Metallica wasn't trying to tell me that it was Master of Puppets 2. Because you're immediately pulling. So, like, in the case of Rob Zombie with Hellbilly Deluxe, it was like, okay, Hellbilly Deluxe 2. Of course you're completely amped because we as fans, we always take the bait, no matter what.
It's not even the same band that recorded Hellbilly Deluxe.
No,
right.
Rob Zombie's it,
Right.
So
yeah, like I could understand if they did like I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard Alice Cooper did some kind of reunion album where he actually got the old band together, or he's going to.
Yes.
Yeah.
The most recent one was the first recording that the original Alice Cooper band had done in a while.
Do you mean Paranoia?
I believe so. I'm double checking that.
Because I've actually listened to that like crazy. I love that album, but I think they got together for a couple songs on it.
You're right. 2 tracks performed by the classic lineup of Alice Cooper.
Fireball, is that one of them?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones on there. I heard something about him doing a whole album, but I don't know if that's true. I could be confusing that.
It would be nice if he did.
Yeah. Because wasn't there a Welcome to My Nightmare also, number 2?
wasn't that like 2011 or something?
Yes.
Welcome to My Nightmare, yeah.
Yes, Welcome to My Nightmare was his 2011 release.
Okay.
I know Alice Cooper as the golfer in makeup because he's a huge golf nut now.
I've seen him at Vintage Vinyl before, but I was too big of a wuss. I didn't go up and say anything to him.
See, I just would have given him the what's up kind of look. I wouldn't have actually said anything. But
I didn't. I know who you are. I'm really weird, dude. I'm really weird. Like, it's weird because we do this podcast and we talk to people. Like bands that we like and stuff like all the time. And it's like, I have no problem with that. Yeah. But for some reason in real life, I turn into kind of the Chris Farley, like, you remember that one time when you cut your head off on stage? That was so awesome, And I can't stop myself,
What Dan is saying is, if you ever met you in real life, he would totally nerd out.
Yeah, I'd be like, here, sign all my Nintendo shit.
Please.
Yeah, there'd be a please in there. Yeah, back on the sequel stuff. Yeah, I think the only genre that can get away with that is prog. Yeah, because Dream Theater, Coheed and Cambria, the whole 9 yards. They make these, these overall huge arcs between albums, and they tell a story and it's all connected. I think that's about the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that it's not overly cheesy.
Jeffrey, do you believe that Good Apollo, A Burning Star 2 is as good of an album as Good Apollo, Burning Star 1? think hard before you answer.
There's only one of the two that exist, right?
No, there's two.
Get out of my house.
I'm just kidding.
Don't worry about it.
I get it. It's one of those, prog can get away with it because most prog is rooted in this is the emotional approach we are taking to this album, or this is the story that we're taking towards the album. It's kind of like filmmaking. You can put yourself in the mindset of the character and say, I can write a sequel because what is this character feeling now? Whereas Hellbilly Deluxe 2, if it followed the same formula, it would be, I'm the artist, I'm in the same mindset I was when I made Hellbilly Deluxe. Yeah, why not? I'll make Hellbilly Deluxe 2. I just won't include a song called Living Dead Girl Returns because that's what I would have done.
Well, you know what, though? Like, I think, yeah, you're right. It was the same mindset. However, he's still had experience. I can talk shit on Educated Horses all I want, but it still was like, we're going to diversify the Rob Zombie sound. And it absolutely did that. So whenever you hear that diversity on Hellbilly Deluxe 2, it's still a progression from what they did before. But at the same time, it's like when you call it Hellbilly Deluxe 2, it's like you want it to be like it like it was originally, but you're not going to get that because you've got time and experience. And I think every artist that's ever released an album ever has the mindset of, man, if I could do this again, I would do this differently, or I would do that differently. Whereas the fans are like, hell no, don't do anything different. Don't ever change.
That goes across everything.
What about the albums you like the most?
Hellbilly Deluxe,
Yeah.
Venomous Rat.
Yeah, I was going to say Venomous Rat, surprisingly, I think might be my favorite. It edges out Hillbilly Deluxe, surprisingly.
Cool.
Yeah, which is, I guess, is kind of surprising because it's not the most popular. But man, it's got so many hooks. It's so catchy. It's so fun.
It really is.
I just, I can't help but not listen to the entire thing.
Well, going all the way back, have you heard sorry, are you talking? I couldn't hear you.
No, we're good.
Take it,
I
James.
saw Matt's movement. I didn't hear anything. I think it was like a delay or something. But have you heard like the really old, like the really old White Zombie stuff from the 80s?
In passing, but I've never sat down and listened to it.
Yeah, it's not really something you listen to much more in passing. I'm sure that there's got to be hardcore fans who eat it all up. But I remember when digging really far back and just being complete and hearing everything they did. It was more like not something you listen to that often because it was a little more abstract. Like it was, not that it's always been abstract, but it's like really like noisy and I don't know. How would you describe that early White Zombie sound?
A group of guys trying to find their footing, not really grasping onto something. I'll be honest with you. I've heard it in passing, but to me, when I think of White Zombie, Rob Zombie, it starts with Thunder Kiss, and everything forward is kind of what's in my mindset.
I'd say it's like noise rock, garage rock kind of sound. That's the first two albums. That's what I would call them. I don't know if that's
piss off your parents' music. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the mid '80s. And I like how much fun they're having with it, and they're doing whatever the hell they feel like they want to do.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of anything personally. I'm sure there's other people out there that are more well versed in mid '80s rock that can tell me something different, but I can't think of anything else at that time in that time frame that sounded like them that I've listened to regularly. And I think that's why
not in the 80s for sure.
Yeah,
there were a lot of bands in the 90s that popped out, but they were just emulating that sound at that point.
It's so like I'm cool with it. Sure, is it a dated sound? Yeah. So what? I dig it. It's definitely something different, and I think noise rock's probably the best thing to describe it because it's all over the place and it is definitely noisy.
I really like the God of Thunder cover, the Kiss song.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just an EP with 3 songs, but that to me that's like the oldest one. I think that's like really good. I love that cover better than the original actually.
Really?
And my favorite Kiss song, I think. I really love I really love the way they, their interpretation of it. Les Exorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1 is really cool.
Yeah.
I would love there to be a White Zombie reunion, and to do, like, maybe Devil Music Volume 2 if they're going to do a sequel to anything.
Right, yeah.
Les Exorcisto that's as good as it gets. That was my first exposure to them, and it's still my favorite thing that he's done. Like all of Rob Zombie's stuff, that is by far my favorite. That is just...
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of redundant, though, isn't it? Like, in the sense that if, like, Rob Zombie plays those songs.
Yeah, he still plays
live,
Astro Creep. He still plays Thunder Kiss.
So it's kind of one of those, like, getting the original band back together, I mean, would be really cool to the people that were in the original band.
Now, that's how you do Hellbilly Deluxe, too. You get Riggs and Blasco and Pesla to come back and actually do it.
But I always kind of felt like, and I don't feel this way about a lot of bands, like when somebody goes solo, but, like, it's weird with Rob Zombie in that I feel like it kind of, like, the Rob Zombie sound was more or less a pretty good continuation of what was going on with White Zombie. I think White Zombie's a little bit heavier, but, like...
It is.
I'm not a total meathead, so I don't care about that as much, but, like, it just... and you'd go and see Rob Zombie, and he'd still play those songs, so... I guess for me, it just never really mattered that much. And that might be, like, total disrespect to the original band, but, like, I just... I guess it just never was something that I was, like... I haven't been yearning for a White Zombie reunion because I kind of feel like it already exists, more or less.
Is that he's continuing it on.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just that they're all alive and well, and it could happen, but it's just, every band's a different situation, and they broke up for reasons, even though we might not know what all the reasons were, but there were reasons that they're not playing together, and like that they have no intention of getting back together. Although the rest of them are pretty open to it. I was at a Q&A with the rest of them, and they said that if Rob was into it, they would do it. But they don't want to go ahead and do something on their own because it would be like, oh, well, it's weird if you just go on, you play the songs, but you don't have the singer. It's like kind of hard to do that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to listen to somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, they were just like, we don't want to be one of those bands where it's like, oh, hey, we're the band, but it's just the bass player, or something. That was in their exact words.
So you're saying as much as us instrumentalists don't want to accept it, the lead singer really is the band?
Unfortunately, in that case, it seems like that's where I feel it's kind of like, I feel kind of bad for the rest of the band because they developed all those songs, and they even said themselves, like, they would just come up with stuff and they'd play it for Rob and be like, hey, can you sing on this? And then he'd be sitting there, like, reading a comic book or something and be like, yeah, that sucks, or all right, whatever, that's fine, I'll sing on it. That's the way they, what the process was like back then. So I do feel like they kind of are the legitimate, artists behind those songs, and it's cool hearing John 5 play them and everything, but it would be cool to hear the original band do it, once again. And I don't think, like, if the situation with them, it's just not really, it's not something Rob wants to do, but I don't know, like, it would be cool to see it happen, like, once, like maybe just a one-time show or something. I don't know, like, anything could happen. Guns N' Roses got back together, so who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, they
in
even came to St.
2020,
Louis.
we get White Zombie to play Astro Creep 25th anniversary.
Yeah, there you go.
Why not?
Yeah.
New album, Astro Creep 2020.
There you go.
Yes!
And then we're going to be on here being like, yeah, it was nothing like the original. Yeah, because that's what we do. But yeah, like,
yeah.
No, it's weird too because, like, all of that stuff, the reunions, the re-recording of albums, the part twos, as much as I shit on it, like, I love it, because it's like, it's something for me to do and something that I can be instantly familiar with.
It just hit me now. Like, the thing about Hellbilly Deluxe 2, and I know we've talked about it, like, a ton, but I feel like Sinister Urge was Hellbilly Deluxe too. Not just that it was the next album, but it actually like carried it kind of continued off of that sound. It was that band. So I just feel like there's nothing wrong with doing a sequel album. Like, you can do it, but it should be accurate. It should either have the old band or have some reason. Because can you think of any reason to connect Hellbilly Deluxe 2 with Hellbilly Deluxe 1 any more than any other of the albums that you could call Hellbilly Deluxe 2?
Not at all.
Nope.
They're separate entities.
I agree with that. Sinister Urge could have been Hellbilly Deluxe 2, and I would never have complained. It's like a good sequel. Die Hard 2 was just Die Harder.
Led Zeppelin,
Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 3,
1, 2,
4,
3,
5,
4. You're
17,
good. You're good.
9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But where at Hellbilly Deluxe 2, you could tell me that the whole reason it's called that is Rob was in the same mindset, and I would say he might be in the same mindset, but the album more resembles Educated Horses.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it called Hellbilly Deluxe 2 other than...
Money grab.
Thank you.
I like Money. Do you guys like Money? I mean,
I love Money.
you can't really fault him for that.
Hey, Dan, can I have some money?
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. But yeah, I mean, it's if it was a money grab, it's so funny too, because you hear a lot of podcasts like ours are very much like, oh, well, they sold out. They sold out. They just wanted money. They weren't being honest with. And it's like, dude, I don't know about the rest of us, but like, have I not been waiting my entire life for that moment to sell out? You know what I mean? Like, hey, buddy, all your bills are going to get paid. Your family's going to be taken care of for years.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is talk into a microphone.
Call this album Hellbilly Deluxe 2. Sounds good, man. Where do I sign?
Yeah, a lot of times I think people assume that all the bands are rich, and probably lots of times they are, but not all the time. I think there's probably a lot of times where they actually really have to keep, it's their job. They have to keep doing it, to support themselves. So I don't know. You don't know what their situation is like. It's hard to, unless you're them, it's hard to know.
Right. Do you know the band Taproot? They we talked to their drummer recently, and they were one of the biggest bands in like the early 2000s, like 2000, 2005. And like one of their songs was like the most played song. Was it in 2003, 2002?
2002.
Yeah, it was like the most played song. And like the members of that band were making
nothing.
Yeah, like I read his book that he wrote, and it was like he showed his actual tax earning statement. It was like less than $1,000 a year for like a band that was touring with like Disturbed and Korn, and and that just blew my mind. I was like, wow, some of these people that I assume are rich are not.
Yeah, that song was for radio play for rock music was number 2 that year for the second most played song on the radio. So I mean, it's not like they didn't get exposure; they got obscene amount of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think that Rob Zombie live show costs?
Oh, probably cost. I think that's why they scaled it back. It was probably so expensive to. And they also had, like, in comparison, like the ticket prices were not any higher than other bands.
No, because people wouldn't go.
Yeah, Rob Zombie was actually one of the cheaper. I remember at that time. I mean, wow, everything sounds cheap now, but like $50 to see Metallica, and at that time that was a expensive ticket.
It's like $70 or $80, yeah.
Yeah, and Rob Zombie was like $20, and I was just like wow, you could see this show, and it's like got this huge production, and then you look at talking about rock stars who maybe not as rich as you think, like Lemmy and Motorhead. I mean, I don't know anything about his financial life, but up until his last day, like the guy was like 70 years old, had 22 albums to his credit. He's like one of the founders of like heavy rock music, and he's just living in like this small apartment, and I mean, maybe that's by choice, I don't know, but he had like a very basic living style. He didn't live like a celebrity or anything like that. He was just a down-to-earth guy, and just kept on touring all the time. And maybe he needed to. Maybe he needed the money.
Whether he did or didn't, what you just described is the reason why he's so endearing to us fans, though. I mean, that's why we've loved him throughout the years, and
the
we
dude
still love him.
what he practiced what he preached, so to speak. He wasn't anybody important, at least not to himself, but to us, obviously.
Yeah.
You're actually one of the most recent examples I can think of, because I kind of put rock stars and filmmakers in the same boat. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're on tour, you're not making money as much as you're spending money to make money. Mm-hmm. And, I remember through the production of your film, everybody talking about how much it must have cost, and I thought, how much it cost and how much money he's not making while he's working on this film.
Exactly. Like, there wasn't any AVGN videos for like 7 months because I was making that movie. Not only that, but like all the money for the budget, everything just went into the film. Like, it didn't even touch me. It didn't even pass through my hands. Like, then at the same time, I'm paying for 2 places to live. I'm paying on paying the mortgage on my house plus an apartment in LA at the same time. Drove across country to make this movie in LA. And just all the spending of like just your personal life as you're doing that doesn't count. That's not in the budget of the film. That's just your personal expenses that nobody else is ever going to know about. So it was just like really sunk myself into like a personal financial hole while I was doing that. And then you wouldn't even think about like, there was a separate LLC set up for the film. And that LLC was also owned by me, so I have Cinemassacre and then I have AVGN Movie. But AVGN Movie, all the taxes that went into that put me in a higher tax bracket for my own personal taxes too. So I had to pay more taxes on my own personal account that didn't even have anything to do with the movie. So it was just like so much. It was just this constant like snowball effect. Just if you invest yourself in a project like that, like it's going to take over your life. It's not a small thing at all.
It's like taking a really deep breath and then hold it.
Right, yeah.
6 months later, keep holding it.
Hope you still got that air, buddy. Yeah, that's rough.
Great movie, by the way.
Oh, thanks. About Rob Zombie's films, how do you feel about them?
I am a big fan of House of a Thousand Corpses. I love The Devil's Rejects. I don't like the way they changed Otis's character, but I kind of look past that. Those came out at a time where nobody was making like a 70s style horror film, but we were all kind of talking about them. And especially Grindhouse. I've always gone to Grindhouse. There's a local one here at the High Point Theater that's once a month, where you get to see all the glory and all the failure that is Grindhouse film.
I keep telling you I'm going to go, and I never go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, how come I've never been invited? I would actually go.
We'll start doing some film
You're just
reviews.
the hired help, Jeff.
But hey, that's Jake's job to hold the bucket. Anyway, but
Into the bucket.
I remember thinking when I first saw them, these are like the 70s horror films that I watch on VHS. But it wasn't like pandering. It was, let's make a gritty horror movie again. Mm-hmm. And
totally what he was watching, in the 70s, I'm sure.
Well, didn't he say, and maybe I'm summarizing an interview, but didn't he say, I wanted to make a movie like the horror movies that I like to watch?
I'm sure he did. I remember him talking about like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it's totally something he just wanted to make. I have mixed feelings about a lot of them. I'm glad he made them. Like, I just love that he has 1 foot in film and 1 foot in music. Like, you don't see that very often. So I'm really glad he's able to like go back and forth with that. I really love The Devil's Rejects, like significantly more than any of the other ones he did. And the rest I'm kind of mixed about, but generally, I wasn't quite sure what to make of a House of Thousand Corpses, but then when Devil's Rejects came out, I was like, I totally get this now. And then I wasn't really that big on the Halloween films. There's some good things about the first Halloween movie he did, and then the second one was kind of a mess, but a hysterical mess. So I do get some enjoyment out of it.
Right.
Lords of Salem
Yeah.
Lords of Salem. I forgot all about that.
on 31. Those were okay.
I'll just put it this way. One of my heroes is John Carpenter. Like, I love him. So it was hard for me on the Halloween stuff. As a collective whole, I'm okay with Rob Zombie in his films. So I don't think you can. I don't know. I guess I should just say, as a collective whole, I like it. I like 70s horror films. I like slasher flicks. I like stupid horror schlock as well. You know, trauma. So I mean, just give it to me. And the only thing that I had, like I said, the only thing that I had a hard time with was Halloween. I loved the Werewolf Women of the SS. I loved that short. I love that. I wish that actually like turned into a full feature film. I would be the first person in line for that.
I'll always approach an original idea with more favor than I will a remake, because aren't remakes kind of stereotyped at this point? It's like, oh, you ran out of ideas, so you're remaking Halloween. Well, I want to do my original spin on it. Well, I'm sure there's a place for that, but I find myself ranking remakes against other remakes, not against the original film. Where the new Nightmare on Elm Street, that doesn't even stack up close to the original. But compared to the Rob Zombie remakes of Halloween 1 and 2, Rob Zombie's far and above, because he added that gritty 70s thing to it. I don't know that Mike Myers needed a backstory, but no one had done it, so why not?
Talking about, his movie stuff, as far as like his animation, I like that as well. I was a big Beavis and Butthead fan, so the animated portion that he did in the desert in Beavis and Butthead Do America, I loved that. I thought that was crazy and trippy.
That animated film he did too. El Phantasmo.
Yeah, El Superbeast, isn't that it?
El Superbeasto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd forgot entirely about that. I watched that when it popped up on Netflix, and I thought, this isn't really good, but I dig it.
Yeah, you know what? Boy, it's like, and nowadays, unless I'm reviewing a movie, unless I'm actually watching it for the purpose of like making a video about it, I forget very easily now. Like, unless the movie makes some really big impression on me, most of the time I just completely forget. And I seen it. All I remember was I saw it and I liked it. I remember that much. I always remember if I liked the movie or I didn't like it, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. It's just like, wow, that was just something I watched one night and then went to bed. It's gone. The memory's gone. Yeah, I find that depressing, that unless I'm writing notes down, unless I'm actually like writing stuff, it's not going to make it. Your mind has to filter out so much unimportant details, or else your head just explodes. So it just
right, because it comes superfluous. I understand.
Yeah.
No, dude, we get it.
Spoken like a true journalist.
We get it. I mean, especially with music, we made the kind of stupid decision to talk about bands' entire discographies.
Get up on that mic, Dan.
We made the stupid decision to talk about bands' entire discographies when sometimes we only have like a week to listen to it. Like if it's a band I've never heard of or something.
Oh, okay.
It's like I have to sit down and like put the record in, or don't get me wrong, a lot of the shit that we do is through Apple Music, because if sites like that didn't exist, we wouldn't have a podcast, and so we, if it's a band I'm not familiar with, it's like I have to sit down with a notepad and pen and listen to every album and write a note about each track and and that sort of thing, because like when we're not doing interviews, that's what we do, is we just talk about every album. We're like, all right, guys, let's start with the first one and go all the way. If the band has like 15 albums, it's like gets really challenging. Judas Priest, who we're doing next.
Coming up in January.
So, that one's going to be a monster
task. It's going to be hard, yeah.
Wow, I'm huge on that one, too.
Yeah, everybody loves Rob. I'm a huge Tim the Ripper Owens fan. Like I'm a huge Ice Earth fan. So I think I was like one of like 5 people that in the entire world that were super excited that the Ripper was going to be with Judas Priest. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah. And then there's that terrible movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg. That's actually about Tim the Ripper Owens.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I've never seen it.
Oh, my wife loves that movie. That's how I know it's bad.
You need to give that a watch. It's really good for what it is.
An interview with Rob Halford where they said, like, what'd you think of that movie Rockstar? And he just said, it sucked. And I didn't know if it was like a piss take on Tim, but I don't know. I mean, those guys, I think they get along, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, officially anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Tim Ripper Owens was in a huge like that's like his idol was Rob, and
like,
he was
he idolizes Halford, but I just wasn't sure how Halford ever felt about the Tim Ripper Owens era.
But the Ripper is so good. I mean,
it really is. I mean, Jugulator is such a good album, and Demolition has a couple really good tracks on it, more than a couple, but. Yeah, and also there's some live tracks that Tim Ripper Owens does that is like unbelievable. Like when he does Rapid Fire on the Live Meltdown CD.
Yeah.
Like holy shit! Like that's actually one where I think he surpasses Halford. Now most of the time, Halford, he's the metal god. Like he's you can't beat him. But there are some exceptions where the Ripper really brings it.
He's got one of my favorite voices of all time.
I have footage of him on my iPhone. I was at the Dio Disciples show.
Oh, nice.
It was in Asbury Park, and there was a small venue. And I just remember, like, because I don't film stuff at concerts much, like, with iPhones, but like there was this. When he was doing Mob Rules, I was just like, I got to get a little bit of this on my cameras to show people, look how close I am. I'm like almost in like the front, and I just started recording him, and then he played to my camera, like he just sang to it. And
oh, that's so awesome!
He like grabbed this dude's head right in front of me, like for a couple moments, but it was like wow, like it was just a very intimate show.
You still have that?
I do.
That's going to be on YouTube later, right, James?
I never upload I never upload stuff from concerts or whatever. Oh, the whole debate about how people don't like, when people have cell phones at concerts. I have the perfect solution. Every concert venue, when they sell tickets, they should just for a little extra charge, something reasonable, like $10 or something. Just be like, hey, you can get a recording, a pro shot recording of the whole show, and it'll be sent to you as like a digital download. You'll get the link after to the same email where you bought the tickets or whatever, and everybody can just watch the show then
and enjoy it.
It'd be very cool. Yeah
Isn't actually Pearl Jam's done something very similar to that.
Really?
One of their tours a while back. I think it was really before smartphones were a big deal. But you could actually pay and get a professional version of the concert that you attended. I don't know if it was video, but I do know that an audio version of it was included if you wanted to pay additional.
I have heard of those, yeah.
So I was like, that's a brilliant idea. I was like,
it is, and it shouldn't be too much harder to get the video because they have the video screens at concerts usually if it's a big show. And it goes through some kind of like mixer. So they probably, all they need to do is run whatever software on there. And as it goes to the screen, it's also being recorded. It's like, why not?
You sound like me at every live performance I've ever done where I say they can just hook up a recorder to that thing and sell it. I don't know if it's that easy, Joe. And I'm like, if you can hear it coming through speakers, someone has a board. And the filmmaker comes out. If I can see it on screen, somebody can plug in a VCR.
And it's live edited too. I mean, they're like, they're switching, the cameras on like, live. And I know it can be done because they actually, some of those, some shows become bootlegs that way. And then like when Rob Halford sang for Black Sabbath, which I was there actually, not the first times with Dio, but with Ozzy. And that's actually like a popular bootleg now where you can get like perfect sound, perfect, picture. And yeah, it's like I think it would definitely cut down on all the cell phones that so many people find annoying,
Or make a section for it at least.
The cell phone section?
Yeah, the bare minimum. If you're gonna have your phone out, you have to be over here. You know.
I always felt it kind of is like, the lighters. It took the place of the lighters.
Same thing.
And like, I think it looks cool when you're like looking into the crowd and you see all these like things lighting up. I know the problem is when there's somebody right in front of you and they have their phone up, then it can be annoying. Because they're blocking, you. But, I think that would be a pretty simple thing that should cut down on that.
Do you still watch wrestling?
I don't. I never was big on wrestling, but I see the appeal for sure.
I bring that up because there's a character now for WWE called Bray Wyatt. That's his whole thing. The cell phones come out and he calls everybody Fireflies. Check that out. That's awesome.
It's been a long time. It's been since the Attitude Era that I've paid attention to wrestling.
You can skip about 10 years after that, and then it got good again.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm just a guy that listens to metal, but
Yeah, there's
The original Superbeast, Dano.
Yeah, there's plenty of correlation between wrestling and metal,
I guess.
especially if you're Chris
That's
Jericho.
cool. I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's not something I'm into. But
Even Rob Zombie did theme songs back in the 90s, and
Yes,
we
he did.
brought it back.
yeah, it's like we were going to talk about Rob Zombie again. I mean, I don't care. This is great, but
It's a staple of comedy.
I'm glad that so you picked Black Sabbath and Rob Zombie. So far you've gotten all these bands that I'm like complete on, that I actually like have listened to every single thing they've ever done. So I don't have to do that like where you guys must do it all the time, is having to do that, like you were saying, listen to a whole discography in a week and write notes and stuff.
right.
So like Judas Priest is another one where I listen to every single thing they've ever done. Metallica, Megadeth, Led Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses, they're easy. They don't have that big of a discography.
No.
Even Chinese Democracy.
Yeah,
Do we have to talk about that one? Actually, I kind of dug it. But.
Yeah, it's funny talking about Guns N' Roses. One of the guys I work with, he's in love with Axl. Like, he's like this monstrous man, bald head, full of tattoos. Somebody you would never want to meet. And since we live in St. Louis, you know the whole Axl St. Louis history.
Oh yeah,
Okay. So whenever they actually played here, I actually got him hooked up with a pretty good deal on tickets, so he could go. He was in the best mood at work for like 3 or 4 straight weeks because he knew he was gonna actually get to see Axl on stage with Slash, and like it was like
that was unbelievable.
yeah, and I was like, the more I thought about it, I'm like, why the hell didn't I get tickets for myself?
And they're still on tour. Like they've actually come around to Philly like twice now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
Thrice, maybe. I don't. It's like I thought this was gonna be like a one-time thing.
I did too.
They did it in L.A. and it's like, okay, well that was that. But it's just this. They're touring. They're still touring, and
I guess that's what happens when you get in your
If
your
it keeps
40s
selling
and
out,
50s and you're still
why
making
not?
money and you gotten older and you gotten over the whole drama of the whole situation, and you're just able to look at the green stuff that people are willing to give you. It makes life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in my 30s, but like I can't remember half the shit I was mad about at somebody like 10 years ago. Like it's, I don't really have any grudges or anything. Granted, nobody's ever fucked me out of a huge sum of money or anything like that, but like I just. It's weird to me to see these like 20-year-old feuds, or and then how quickly some of them will backpedal on it and be like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, let's go on tour for 2 years." Like.
I read Slash's book, and it's a pretty thick book too, and it's just loaded with stories, and like you take it for what it is, but any rock star's autobiography, like what actually happened or not, but. The way he paints Axl, like he was like a maniac, and how much of a nightmare it was working with him. And after reading that book, it was like, wow, there's no way ever they would ever even like set foot in the same room, let alone play on stage again. And then it just happened, and it's like, yep. That none of that mattered.
Right, it's like we were saying about the Black Sabbath on the Black Sabbath episode about how like Tony Iommi and Ozzy Osbourne didn't get along, and then all this. It's like they don't get along until they do, right? It's weird.
Yeah. And that just went so many different ways. It's like, okay, there were some things said between Geezer and Ozzy. There's things said between Ozzy and Tony. There's things said between Bill and Ozzy. And it's just like every which way, it was like some kind of dysfunction.
Yeah, every time you mentioned a couple there, Ozzy's name was mentioned.
Yeah, a lot of times, yeah. But the only ones that I never seen get into any scuffle was Geezer and Tony. I don't think they ever had any issues, but like, yeah, it's like that was just something where it's like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And then it did, except for Bill. And it was like, okay, then the one that you didn't expect, you know, it didn't work out. And it's a shame that they weren't able to resolve that. But
how did you feel about Axl filling in for Brian Johnson with AC/DC?
Oh, I saw that actually the last show, September 20th in Philly. It was the last AC/DC show maybe ever, and I was there. And I thought it was a great choice for, like, if they had to finish the tour, and they really couldn't use Brian, if he had the problem with his ears, or his one ear. I think he's going deaf in one ear, and it's like it was a serious thing. It's not like, you know, it wasn't anybody's choice. So and then Axl came to them and said, "Hey, I'll sing for you." That just, it's like you get to see Axl and you get to see AC/DC, and his voice totally fit. I mean, he totally you know, had the right voice for it. And afterwards, now that that's over and they don't have any touring commitments, I don't think that they should continue that way. I think what they should do is, because, all right, Cliff already left, but Cliff said that was his last show. He's not doing anything else. So AC/DC's, I mean, pretty much, yeah, they're down to Angus as the only original member now.
Yep.
Right.
And well, even Cliff wasn't original, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So anyway, like, AC/DC's not going to be doing any more albums. I don't think. Guns N' Roses, they're not really an album band anymore. I mean, they did Chinese Democracy, but it's more like a touring act right now. They've shared the stage a few times together. Like Angus, you know, he's joined Guns N' Roses, you know, on like a few songs, you know, here and there. So since they've already been collaborating so much, I think they should just combine the two bands, call it Guns and DC, and just go on tour like that and record a new album, call it Guns and DC. And
I'd go see that.
Go.
I don't think they'd be able to play in Washington.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I'd get that. I would definitely get that on there.
Oh my God! Wow. Well, you can call it a AC Rose if you want.
Yeah.
AC Rose.
That's what Axl wants.
I'd buy that on vinyl for sure. Yeah, it's no joke.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's setting up some good remixes in my head. Oh, sweet child of TNT.
Yeah. So, do we want to give our final thoughts on Rob Zombie? I mean, I'm not saying we got to stop talking, but you know,
The train is derailed. Hey, it wasn't even my fault this time. How about that?
I don't care, man. Nobody that listens to our podcast expects us to stay on topic for.
That's true.
We got through the discography.
We did pretty good. Yeah.
James of Cinemassacre, I will allow you to lead off and say final thoughts on Rob Zombie.
Oh, I just love the world he takes me into of, like, you know, monsters and horror films, and just I just love that it's music that means nothing. Like, sometimes you want some meaning in what it is you're listening to, but what I just love about White Zombie and Rob Zombie is it just takes you into some place where it's just, fuck it, nothing has any meaning. And that was what the 90s was all about for me. So I think White Zombie and Rob Zombie, people don't usually, when people say 90s bands, they're usually thinking of, you know, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. Me, I'd go more White Zombie, Alice in Chains, Tool, Primus, Smash Pumpkins.
All the weird shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I just love the edgy, you know, weird shit. Yeah.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder there, because that's really similar to how I feel about White Zombie and Rob Zombie's solo career, is the fact that it, you know, there's not some deep-rooted meaning, you know, and there's not some, you know, special emotional connection to what he's saying. It's just fun. It's just fucking out there, and just have a blast. Let's be crazy, and try to shock people along the way if we can. And that's exactly what I love about it. It's just that you can just throw this stuff on and have a blast. And that's really, really, really what I like about it. Especially, actually, really about his solo career. The first two and the last two albums, especially. Those 4 albums, man, are badass.
Yeah.
Dan, what about you?
Well, Hellbilly Deluxe obviously is like my bread and butter. And what I like about Rob Zombie is that I'm always in for something strange and something cool and something heavy, and the meathead in me is satisfied by the heaviness of the band for the most part. The intensity of the electronics, especially in the early stuff, I really like. Yeah. I like the loops. I like the samples. And like James said earlier, the samples are great because it's like decoding a puzzle. Like trying to figure out where each sample came from. And so, I watch a lot of old VHS horror stuff and science fiction stuff. And every now and again, it's fun to be just watching one of those movies and be like, holy shit, that's a quote from, or that's on my Hellbilly Deluxe album. And I really like that. And, I'm not as big of a fan of the newer Rob Zombie, but that's not to say that it doesn't hold a special place for my heart. If he's coming to St. Louis and he's playing indoors, I'm going.
Smart choice.
He's one of those artists that I just follow, like, no matter what. It's just like I will be following Rob Zombie, whatever he's doing next. I'm always gonna like check it out, even if it's like, whether it's the movies or the music, like no matter what it is. And even if it's like something that I didn't like that much, I'll be like, that one was okay, but let's see what he does next,
I think Rob Zombie is heavy. He's rock. He's dark. He's mysterious, at least in his music. In real life, he seems to be a guy that likes fun stuff, like making movies. So my final thoughts on Rob Zombie are it's my favorite mainstream music to dance to.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I was doing with Rock and Roll in the Black Hole earlier today. I was having a total blast listening to that song. That's probably my favorite song of his overall, surprisingly. I love that song.
It really is good. It's a really good. I also love the Pretty Filthy Creatures one on there.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a shorter one, but it's really heavy, and it's just really cool.
I guess we ought to do our pick of the week. We normally do like a band that we're listening to outside of. Doesn't even have to be a band. It can be audiobook or podcast, but something that we're listening to besides our artists.
Okay. Me. I haven't been listening to any one thing in particular lately. It's really just all over the place. But it's tend to be a lot of heavy '90s music. So like this totally fits the the genre. Like I've been listening to a lot of Tool lately. So yeah.
It's not like you're going to get any new Tool anytime soon.
I can't wait for that.
Still listen to the old ones. They're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
No, they're talking about doing new music.
They are. They're working
for the past decade. Yeah,
a really long time. Like I heard a detailed explanation from Maynard, and he was saying that it's like, every time he can't really just do the vocals on it because they keep changing the music, and when they change the music, he's got to change the vocals. So he's kind of like letting them get through their process first, and once they have the music all done and ready, then he can start doing vocals. So it's kind of just they just have a slower process, and that's the Tool process. If that's what it takes to make it awesome, then cool.
Yeah, I'm totally down with it.
Dan, what about you?
I'm going to have to just default to what I did last week because I'm really a big fan of a band called The Contortionist. And they have an album. They have 2 albums out that are really great. One is called Language, which is so the band started off as more of like a death metal, like harsh growled kind of thing. But what they morphed into over time, they changed singers about midway through their career, and they got a guy that was actually really good at melodic singing, and so it's like real different, because fans of that type of music don't typically react well to somebody coming in and singing really well, but they put out an album called Language that was just absolutely mind-blowing for me, and it's mostly sung vocals with like heavy proggy guitars, and it's just really great. And then they released another one after that called Clairvoyant, which was even more melodic, I think, than Language
straight up
was.
prog rock.
Yeah, and I really found those records really good. It's not normally in my wheelhouse. I mean, normally if they're not screaming, I'm not listening, that sort of thing. But this band really, they really grabbed me by the heartstrings, and I've just been on a huge kick on that. I've been mixing that up between that and Judas Priest, where Judas Priest, it's funny because, like, you'd think if you're listening to this band that started off as death metal that they would be, like, considered heavier or whatever. But when I listen to Judas Priest, I'm like, man, it's just so aggressive. It's so ballsy, in comparison.
And they keep up. Like, Priest keeps up with every decade, every genre they change.
Yeah, you listen to a new Judas Priest record, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're talking about like what I'm looking forward to is the new Priest in March. I'm like, I cannot wait to hear more. Did you hear like the 16 seconds that they released?
Yeah, and I was like, damn, you release a song, god damn it,
At least. A lot of bands are doing that where there's like a little, like I know Black Sabbath with 13 and Metallica with Hardwired, they like put out like a 10-second thing before. But yeah, I heard that and was like, oh man, I need to hear more of this. I can't wait.
So are you saying in March we can give you a call back and get your review on the new Judas Priest record?
I don't even know what's better for me, earlier or later, but whenever you decide to do it, just let me know and I'll see if I could come back, because that's another one that's like that's one of my favorite. That's actually Priest and Sabbath have always kind of duked it out over my favorite spot, but like, so right now Priest is like my second. I mean, hell, I even have them tattooed on my arm. So
right.
It's like,
Nice.
Awesome.
If I like them that much, then but no, if it works out, yeah, I'll join on.
Yeah, I'll
That's
send
cool.
you. I'll email you after this. I'll email you a calendar of all the bands we're planning on talking about. And
Okay.
if something you're like, oh my god, I have to fucking weigh in on that, let us know, and we'll get on it.
Hey Joe, what did you have for your?
We skipped Joe. Sorry.
No, they skipped me too. That's all right.
It's okay. Mine's easy. Days Go By the Offspring.
That's a great album too. Yeah.
I was not expecting that after the Rise and Fall album. I thought, okay, the Offspring's still a thing. And then Days
All
Go
of
By
that,
came out. Yeah.
All that dance fucker dance song, the second track, You're Gonna Go Far, Kid. That's a great.
Yes.
So yeah. But I know what you mean though. Overall, that the Rise and Fall album was kind of like, okay. But then Days Go By had a lot of good stuff. I mean, sure, one of them was one of the tracks was a re-recording of a track from Ignition, I believe. What was that one called again? Oh, I forget the track, but one of them is an old song. I have my iTunes library here. Let's just see. Dirty Magic. That was the one. I'm pretty sure. Let me I just hear just 2 seconds of it. Let's see. Yeah, it was Dirty Magic.
Nice. I had to listen to a record that had a song on it called Slim Pickens Does the Right Thing and Rides the Bomb to Hell.
It's a great song too. That's probably my favorite one on there.
And then it became my favorite Offspring song.
It's up there. It really is. Like I was surprised, and also my favorite ones in their recent history always has to have the line "Dance fucker dance" in there.
Right.
Dance fucker dance, let the motherfucker burn.
Right. I think Cold Chamber did that, right? Yeah. Also,
Bloodhound Gang.
Bloodhound Gang, but the Cold Chamber.
Everybody did
Cold
that in the
Chamber
90s.
covered it,
That was
yeah.
the joke.
Yes,
The
it
roof
was.
on fire.
Yes.
It's not as good as Cold Chamber's "Shock the Monkey." It's a good way to boost your album
wow.
up. Just call up Ozzy and have him come over and sing on it. You know, like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm the weird one of the week. I actually went a little lighter. It's kind of funny since we mentioned Guns N' Roses earlier. The lead singer of this band did backing vocals on a lot of on some Guns N' Roses stuff, and his older sister was really good friends with Axl back before Axl moved to Hollywood, and that's Blind Melon with Shannon Hoon. Dude, Shannon Hoon, when he was on, I don't think anybody could touch him on how good his vocals were. He was fantastic. Unfortunately, drugs took him a little too soon, but Changes, that's like one of my all-time favorite songs. Soul One, that's another one that I just freaking love. That's on Soup. But yeah, that's a lot of people just think of No Rain, And that's a gross misrepresentation of what Blind Melon was. They're a much better band. They're outside of Shannon Hoon. It's a bunch of guys from Mississippi that play some really good, easygoing Southern rock with some crazy high-pitched vocals over the top of it. So yeah, that's what I've been listening to this week. Besides Rob Zombie, I had to balance it out a little bit.
Very cool.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do that. Not just like change it up, clean the palette.
Yes.
Is there anything you're working on right now that you want to talk about, or?
Nothing particular. Trying to get back to more like creative, like, well, everything's creative, but more like true Cinemassacre projects, like those more long-term kind of things, like, trying to write a feature film and see where that goes. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but just to kind of try to go forward again, do some more horror stuff, get back to my roots, but also pushing the envelope forward.
So you're going to edit on a DVD player instead of a VHS, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, at least me personally, I was a big fan of the Playlist Junkie videos this year.
Oh, cool.
And it was a lot of fun, because like, especially if I had to like cram something or, I just wanted to listen to something without having to think about it. I could just watch that video and just kind of put the playlist together and be like, oh yeah, and
cool.
And that was kind of nice because I'm typically more of an album guy, but that gets really exhausting with what we do.
Yeah, I'm actually the same way. So yeah, I'm cover to cover, first song to last song, but it's over the last year it's gotten a little monotonous. So I've been needing to break that up, and that has helped. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We also appreciated all the nerd videos we got in December because that was, it was like every time I go to work, because I work late shifts sometimes, and there's a lot of waiting periods between like what I do. Because I basically maintain a clean water system, so there's like dump bleach in the water and then rinse it out, whatever. But that takes like an hour, 2 hours or whatever, and I'll just kind of sign into YouTube or go on Cinemassacre or something and be like, holy shit, there's another new nerd video. And so that was pretty cool to get to see that. And
yeah, it's crazy.
We're getting pretty prepped up for 2018. We had a really killer first year doing this. We had no idea, when we started a music podcast, I just kind of figured that like there were how like there's a lot of movie podcasts, like dudes talking about movies. We're like, well, there's probably 10,000 metal podcasts out there, and we were really surprised at the warm reception and everything that we got, and we've had some really cool people on, yourself included. So it's been a lot of fun, and we really appreciate you wanting to come back after the first one, and it's definitely a lot of fun, and hopefully we can get that Judas Priest thing going, because that sounds like that's going to be a.
Is that a preview for 2018, Dan?
That's going to be I think that's going to be a long one. So
yeah, it's pretty massive.
It's epic too. I mean, in a good way. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you end up with the discography that we end up doing, and we have a lot of albums, and it's not hard to listen to Priest. It's really easy to listen to their stuff.
Always different. Every album it sounds different too. Especially like if you broke it down by decades, like 70s, 80s Priest all sound like different bands. They don't even sound like the same band.
Yeah, look at Rock and Rolla, and then you go to Painkiller. If you just jumped all those albums to Painkiller, like holy shit! Like
if you look at Halford, like when you look at him in like 73 or whatever, performing Rock and Rolla, and he's got this long, like curly blonde hair, like Robert Plant or something.
He's a hippie,
and then, like then you fast forward. Now he's just like a bald, like biker, and the beard and everything. It's just his
all leather, head to toe.
So
yeah. We'll definitely get into that because that's
2018.
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole.
We might wait for you on that one, James.
Okay.
This has been episode 44 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks. huge thank you goes out to the man that is more human than human, James Rolfe. You can find everything he does at cinemassacre.com.